Hello. I'm back. I'm Melissa Mitchell, and I have the pleasure to talk about some amazing topics today. So, we're going to actually talk about when you get your money, how are you spending your money? We have some amazing panelists today that are going to talk about philanthropy at its finest and how you can build a legacy through what you do with giving. So, I'm going to bring up my good girl, Chelsea, and Monique. We're going to have a chat about philanthropy. So, let's give a round of applause to my girls. Come on up. Enjoy, ladies. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. How y'all
Hello,
doing?
hello.
Hi. All right, we're going to get seated. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Chelsea Brown. I serve as the founder and CEO of the Black Mill, which is a national fundraising firm based in Baltimore. Any Marylanders, DMVers up in here? Hey. We're based in Baltimore, Maryland, and since our inception in 2021, we have helped raise over $30 million for mission-driven organizations nationally. I'm here to talk to you about philanthropy today with my wonderful fireside chat co-person, Monique Curry-Mims. Today we will talk about why all of you all should think of yourselves as philanthropists. And my first question, I want Monique to introduce herself and give me some context on, in your childhood, what really made you look at yourself as either a philanthropist or someone that gives back.
Well, thank you, Chelsea. As she said, my name is Monique Curry-Mims, and I am the founder and principal of Civic Capital Consulting. We are an international philanthropic advisory based in Philly. Anybody here from Philly? Yes, let's turn up Philly. So my childhood. So I don't think necessarily in my childhood I thought I was a philanthropist. You know, when I think about my childhood, my mom, I was a Head Start kid, and my mom volunteered at my Head Start, right? She always showed up. She was on the National Head Start board. She was going to conventions. I had a guidance counselor named Mrs. Smith, used to always pour into me. She was an AKA, any AKAs in the house? Okay. She was able to get me a scholarship for school. She allowed me to, or nominated me to sit on some boards, so I was a youth board member. So I was just always active. I started a tutoring program in high school. I was just always community forward, and that is just something that was always ingrained in me. And if you think about church and the things that getting involved, you're a philanthropist when you are giving of your time, talent, treasure, tithes, and testimony. So I was giving of that time. And I think we all do in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. As you know, Black women are endlessly giving a lot of their time, their talent, their treasure, their advice, their wisdom, all the things, in order to make sure that their family, their friends, their people are good. How do we better practice generosity to ourselves? And how do we make sure that Black women have the opportunities and permission to allow themselves to be free?
I'm going to save y'all a lot of therapy because I already did it, right? Set boundaries. We are taught or told or raised that we have to do everything and be everything for everybody. And we have to make sure that we are pouring into ourselves before we pour into anybody else. Someone told me, there's that saying, like, don't pour for an empty cup. We as women, especially as Black women, we have a bucket, right? And the bucket is leaking. So we have to make sure that we are taking time for ourselves. If anything, making sure that we are good so that we can be good for others if you want to give of whatever you want to give. So I think just being able to own that for yourself is very, very important.
Absolutely. Thank you. So what's something about philanthropy? Because I think a lot of the time, even when I've talked to folks and they're like, oh, I'm not a philanthropist, but they give money to their church, right? They give money to nonprofits that they care about. They support Black-owned businesses. They support different things in their community. What do you think is something that philanthropy as a sector kind of gets wrong when they're representing what a philanthropist looks like?
All right, let's get into it. So one, when we think about philanthropy, we think about white philanthropy. We think about institutional philanthropy. We think about the millions of dollars and the six-figure checks. If you really think about philanthropy, everybody talks of it's the love of mankind. That is a Greek saying, right? Traditionally or historically, if you actually look at it, Greeks were colonizers, and they colonized Africa, and they colonized Egypt. And when you think about some historical texts, you think about the Bible, right? You think about just the way that we operated. A lot of the practices of Greek philanthropy came from Africa. So African or philanthropy is in our DNA. It is how we showed up collectively for our communities. It's Ubuntu, right? When we think about the Kwanzaa, right? Those aren't just words. Those are the practices of our community that allowed for us to take care of each other. So I think that that's the misconception. We've gotten caught up in this westernized understanding of it, and the root of it is not Greek, but it is African.
Building upon that, I'm thinking a lot about how America has changed a lot within this past year, right? Thinking about kind of westernized philanthropy and what that looks like and how we as Black people can put that better into practice, especially, again, in a kind of chaotic world right now. What are some tips and tricks that you have when you're thinking about how the everyday person can be a philanthropist?
Well, one, we are launching a giving campaign starting today called Give As We Grow. And it's the idea that we are able to give to our communities through our time, talent, treasure, testimonies, whether that's to a nonprofit, a for-profit, an individual. We are giving to make sure that we are uplifting our community. I think about the idea that when we are giving, it is not just so that we are feeling good about ourselves, but it's that we are actually trying to make a change. And I think that, especially right now, where we are today, one thing that I would like everybody to do, and I know that I think Taraji did it at Essence a couple years ago when she started talking about Project 2025. That was started by the Heritage Foundation, right? And the Heritage Foundation, what someone said, it was not being creative, but they stuck to the roots of what our actual laws are. We have to understand what our laws are, what our tax laws are, and be able to use them to our advantage, because the way that we're using them now, that they're set up, is not for us. So how can we actually better understand them so that we can give? If you did not know, in our tax code, you can actually give up to $19,000 as a gift to someone without having that person pay taxes on it. Did you know up until recently with HR 1 that most Black people, when we gave, we actually didn't get the tax deduction because we didn't meet the threshold? So if we weren't actually getting the deduction, but we were still giving, how can we increase that? How can we really focus on how we can support our businesses, support our nonprofits, making sure that we are uplifting not only the organizations, but the people like us that work in those organizations as well?
I love that. Building upon that, again, I wanted to know, I'm sure there's folks in the crowd that are interested in either starting a nonprofit or have their own nonprofit. What are some words of wisdom that you would give to someone? I know. Words of wisdom or advice that you would give to someone that is interested in starting a nonprofit?
I gotta be honest, when anybody comes to me asking about that, I say don't.
I do the same thing.
Don't.
I do the same thing.
There are such things as fiscal sponsors. Now, I will say there are some fiscal sponsors that are not the best. You know, you have to vet everybody and make sure that everybody is trustworthy and is aligned with your values and your community. I think that is very important. But I think that we can do the work that we do again without having to go down that path. The 501c3 structure is a tax structure, right? It is just about taxes. And when you think about nonprofits, the billions of dollars that actually go out into philanthropy, we only receive 3% of it because we are operating in a system that was not built for us. So don't do it. Find the ways to support our communities without having to be part of a system that's not built for us.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Every time folks come to me and they say, oh, I want to start a nonprofit, I'm like, Pause.
The amount of people who get in trouble, not out of malicious intent, but because they were violating something that they had no idea about, that is a struggle.
Yeah. So let's say someone didn't talk to us and they ended up starting a nonprofit.
Okay.
What are some of the things that they should know when thinking about board membership and kind of like mission and things along those lines? Some tips and tricks you've gained along the way.
Typically when we start nonprofits or even businesses, right, we go to our family and friends. Can you sit on my board? Can you support me? That is a red flag for me because people are there for you and not the mission, which means, you know, I have nonprofits that come to me and say, my board isn't engaged, my board isn't fundraising, my board, because they didn't sign up for that. They signed up because you asked for them to be on something, and they actually did not have the actual commitment for the mission. So make sure that you are finding people that understand that mission and that want to be with that mission is the number one thing for me as a startup, because you want to make sure that you're not in this alone. You want to make sure that you have somebody that is supporting you and supporting your mission and supporting that community. And I think the other thing is making sure that you're building relationships. Okay, you're a nonprofit, you have to fundraise, you have to make sure that you're getting money from the public, you can't fund it yourself. The reason why a lot of nonprofits get money, and you're like, well, why are they getting money and not me? Because they're able to build relationships with funders. The amount of money that I've raised over the years, and even the money that I raise now, came from a conversation. I have talked to a funder and said, hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Not because I was actually trying to raise money, just because we were just having a conversation about something. And they're like, oh, wait, you're doing what? All right, I'm going to give you $40,000 for that. I need to send you an application so that I can go through the board, but you're going to get $40,000 for that. You know how many other nonprofits actually had to apply and then got denied because they didn't have the relationship? So making sure you have relationships, because even though it's an institution, right, it's still people that run the institutions. If I walked up to you and was like, can I have $40,000? You'd be like, what, girl, I don't know you, right? They kind of feel the same way.
So thinking about us as funders, right? There are folks that say, okay, I don't want to have a nonprofit. Maybe I want to have a family foundation or things along those lines. What are some things that they should keep in mind as they think about who they want to fund and how they fund?
Really think about your values. It's really important, right? What is the mission you are trying to actually solve for? We get caught up in either one of two things. We are operating towards charity, or we are operating towards systems change, right? And there is a difference between the two, and both are needed. So when you're thinking about food insecurity, yes, there's going to be an organization that is doing food drives, right, that are providing groceries to people and families. That's needed because people are in need. But there are other funders that are like, we want to make sure that everybody has food tomorrow. And the system and the process that is aligned with that in order for that to be successful is a lot different than the system and the process to actually doing a food drive. So really understanding where you are in this life cycle, what you're trying to fund, how you want your legacy to show up in your community now and later is really important, and in finding that alignment.
Absolutely. So thinking about kind of, again, if everyone were to walk away with kind of one thing that they can do to be maybe a better philanthropist or a better steward of philanthropy, what are some things that you would recommend?
Well, one, go to my website, civiccapitalconsulting.com, and track your giving. So you are here today at Essence. You are in New Orleans for this amazing weekend of culture. I'm sure that all of us have gone to restaurants. I actually bought this dress yesterday from an Ofer pop-up, right? I am supporting Black businesses while I'm here, and I am tracking every dollar that I am giving because it allows for those businesses to grow. It allows for our community members to be hired so that they are able to have a living wage or have wages to take care of their family. But just, I think the number one thing is to understand is that you are a philanthropist. Right? You give of your time. You give of your talent, right? If you give somebody advice, that is giving of your talent. You are telling them how to show up in a certain way. So just understanding what you do and what you're doing it for, I think is really important. But I think the gist of it is that we are not having to abide by and follow institutional practices. The way that we show up for our community is important, and the way that you show up is important, and that is why you are a philanthropist.
Yeah. I do have one last resource, and then I will open up for if folks have questions. But how many of you all knew that August was Black Philanthropy Month? Raise your hand if you knew that. Ah.
Okay.
All right. So August is not only the season of Leos, if there's any Leos in here, but it is also Black Philanthropy Month. And so during that month, there's a couple of initiatives that happen nationally that are focused on giving to Black-led organizations. A couple that come across in my mind, an initiative called Give 828.
Yep.
So it's on August 28th of every year. And again, the focus is how do we kind of corral our own money to give back to Black-led organizations. And you can look that up, and you'll have the opportunity to look through all these different wonderful nonprofits in your area, outside of your area, in your focus, your interests, etc. And then, of course, locally, there's some other ones. I know in Baltimore, we have Collective Give, which is an initiative for Baltimore Black-led nonprofits. And so just make sure that you're taking a look at what's going around you in your area for Black Philanthropy Month. I do want to open it for any potential questions, if any folks have any. Ooh, come on up. And give your name and where you're from. Love your dress, by the way.
Love it.
Hi, Monique.
Hello.
Wait, no. So my question for you is about folks who just don't have a lot of money.
Yep.
Folks who may be young.
Yeah.
And we feel like you said, the Western perspective, right? Like, we need millions of dollars. I don't
Right.
have $5 million. I can't start an endowment. I can't do all that. How would you, what advice do you have? How would you frame this idea of small steps of scaling up your philanthropy? How do you do that? Where do you start if you're just not even sure that you can? How is this possible if I feel like I don't have the funds?
First of all, Jackie could have been on this stage. I know her. So, right. To have an endowment, you do need millions of dollars. However, I have a family foundation. I do not have millions of dollars. I have a donor advised fund with More Philanthropy, which is another black philanthropic advisory that does fund management. They're based out of Boston. But you can pool your resources together. Through that fund, we put our family dollars into it, but there's an also ability to do pooled sources as well, where we can bring in other money. I'm also currently the co-steering committee member of the Philadelphia Black Giving Circle. So being able to collectively pool your money together with your friends, with your family, with your neighbors to support local nonprofits and organizations. Now, I will say, in both of those instances, though, the thing that we sometimes struggle with is we're still in that system. So if I am using my donor advised fund or my family foundation, if I am doing a giving circle that is housed somewhere so that the money can grow, the only way I can distribute that money is to another 501c3 organization. I can't give it to the local grandmom on the block or community member who's doing food gatherings. But we can do that informally, right? We can come together and just pool our dollars so that we can get food and donate food, or we can donate the food that we have or go grocery shopping, right? There are ways that we can provide the resources to our communities without having to be in structures that sometimes hinder us. Did I answer your question? Okay.
I do have a quick question for you because we've used a lot of philanthropy speak, a lot of jargon.
My bad.
So if you could, no, it's all good. If you could explain to me like I'm 5, fiscal sponsorship and donor advised funds.
So a fiscal sponsor is an organization or entity that has signed up to be fiscally or financially responsible for you. So they are allowing of you to utilize their 501c3 status in order to raise money. So it can be any nonprofit can be a fiscal sponsor. So that's one. And you want to make sure if you go that route that they have their finances set up appropriately. But there are some organizations that are just fiscal sponsors, and that's all that they do. But they are set up to be able to have they call them programs. You become a program of their organization, and you are able to fundraise. The money goes to them, and then they distribute to your personal account or your organization's account, or you have to submit some paperwork to get the funding, whatever that case may be. So they're basically, again, signing up so that they can be financially responsible for your entity. A donor advised fund or a DAF is something very similar, but instead of you providing programming, you're providing grants. So your local community foundation typically holds your donor advised funds. There are some other organizations that do as well. And the same thing happens, right? Like you're using their 501c3, because foundations are also 501c3s. You're using their tax ID in order to raise your funds or store your funds. And at a community foundation, they grow as well. You typically grow in a pool. So instead of you being able to individually say, I want to invest my endowment, and I'll talk about that as well, so that it can grow in these certain stocks, it just all goes into one pool. Now, I know we run out of time, but I just jargon-wise, right? So I just want to actually explain endowments and philanthropy, because I don't think a lot of people understand that. When you are a foundation, you see all these foundations, the Ford Foundation and this foundation. Somebody a while ago or even recently had a bunch of money and they put it into an endowment, right? So this is invested money that is growing. according to the law, you only have to distribute 5% a year. When you are typically investing of your endowment, most organizations are trying to get a 12 to 15% return on their investment. So they're taking 5% of that, let's say 15, and they're putting it into the community. And the other 10%, they're basically keeping in their endowment to grow. Then they're hiring their family members to run those foundations, right? So that's how they're creating generational wealth and legacy, because their great-grandkids will always have a job, and their great-great-grandkids running those foundations because the money from the endowment is being used to pay their salaries, right? So that is how foundations exist. And that is something that we can do as well, but also we can do it through donor advised funds, which have a lower threshold of minimum amount to start and an easier setup.
All right, Monique, where can people find you? We got 20 seconds.
You can find me on Instagram at civic.capital, civic.capital. And my website is civiccapitalconsulting.com. And also my personal Instagram is Monique Curry-Mims.
Thank you. And if anyone would like to find me, Chelsea Brown, The Black Mill, my website is theblackmill.co. And you can find us on Instagram at The Black Mill Consulting. Thank you so much for having us here today.
Thank you, guys.
Blame on me for giving you chance after chance. I love what you can't stand, and I try to be strong, but how much can I put your words on